You know what, Anne, if you're there, why don't you call the roll?
Okay, let's see. All right, if you would announce your presence when I announce your jurisdiction. County of San Mateo.
Present.
Oh, and I'm sorry, who was that?
Carolyn Blady,
Oh.
for Carol Groom.
Thank you very much. And County of San Mateo. Okay. Town of Atherton.
Rick DeGolia.
City of Belmont.
Julia Mates.
City of Brisbane.
Madison Davis.
City of Burlingame. Town of Colma. City of Daly City.
Dr. Rod Dasmagwa.
City of East Palo Alto.
Here, but I don't know if you can hear me. Hello?
Yes.
We hear you.
Okay, thank you.
City of Foster City.
Catherine Mahampur.
City of Half Moon Bay.
Harvey Warback.
Town of Hillsborough.
Larry May.
City of Menlo Park.
Catherine Carlton.
City of Millbrae.
Wayne Lee.
City of Pacifica.
Deirdre Martin.
Town of Portola Valley.
Jeff Alfs.
City of Redwood City. City of San Bruno. City of San Carlos.
Laura Palmer Lohan.
City of San Mateo.
Rick Bonilla.
City of South San Francisco.
Laurie Nicholas.
Town of Woodside.
Daniel Yost, in the woods of Woodside.
Director Emeritus.
Pradeep Gupta.
Director Emeritus.
John Keener.
Okay.
Dave Pine, San Mateo is here, San Mateo County.
Thank you, Dave. And we do have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm guessing some more will join us shortly. Okay, our next item then is public comment. Does anyone wish to address the board on an item not on tonight's agenda? And raise your hand. I can't see everyone on the camera, so raise your hand in the window on the software if you want to talk right now. Okay, I do not see any hands raised online, in which case I can take an action to set the agenda and approve the consent agenda items.
I make a motion. I second. It's Wayne.
Okay, moved by Bonilla, seconded by Lee. And roll call vote, please.
No, wait, I would like to pull something from there.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kat, go ahead.
It's all right. I was at the event on Saturday and it has Betsy listed. Betsy was also there, but I would like my name listed as attending as well since I was there.
Oh, so I'm sorry. So you're actually to correct the minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Let's let's pull the minutes and then I'll take a motion to approve the remaining items on consent unless there's anything else someone wants to pull.
I'll move.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, moved Lee, seconded Bonilla. So we're voting to approve the items on consent agenda except for the minutes from our last meeting. Roll call vote, please.
Okay. If you would please signify yay or nay when I announce your jurisdiction. County of San Mateo.
Yes.
County of San Mateo.
Yes.
Town of Atherton.
Yes.
City of Belmont.
Yes.
City of Brisbane.
Yes.
City of Burlingame.
Yes.
Town of Colma.
Yes.
City of Daly City.
Yes.
City of East Palo Alto.
Yes.
City of Foster City.
Yes.
City of Half Moon Bay.
Yes.
Town of Hillsborough.
Yes.
City of Menlo Park.
Yes.
City of Millbrae,
Yes.
City of Pacifica,
Yes.
Town of Portola Valley,
Yes.
City of Redwood City, City of San Mateo,
Yes.
City of San Carlos,
Yes.
City of San Mateo, San Mateo, Rick,
Rick, you're on mute.
Yes.
okay, thank you.
I think I replied earlier under somebody else's yes.
Okay, City of South San Francisco,
Yes.
Town of Woodside,
Yes.
and the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we will go back then to item 16, the minutes from the September 26th meeting. Kat has a change to them, which is just, was Betsy there or you, Kat? I'm trying to remember now.
We were both there, but for some reason it listed her and not me.
Well,
Okay.
I think that Betsy was there for consent, and so she was listed as having voted, and there's only one representative per city, but what I can do is add,
I'm talking about at the list in the beginning on who's actually attending. My name's nowhere in the document that I was there.
okay, I will add a notation that you were there, Kat.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah, I got there late. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other amendments to those minutes? If not, I will entertain a motion just to approve the minutes from September 26th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved Rarbach, seconded DeGolia. Roll call vote, please.
Okay, if you would announce your approval or disapproval of the motion when I announce your jurisdiction. County of San Mateo,
Yes.
County of San Mateo,
Yes.
Town of Atherton,
Yes.
City of Belmont,
Yes.
City of Brisbane,
Yes.
City of Burlingame,
Yes.
Town of Colma,
Yes.
City of Daly City,
Yes.
City of East Palo Alto,
Yes.
City of Foster City,
Yes.
City of Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Town of Hillsborough, City of Menlo Park,
Yes.
City of Millbrae,
Yes.
City of Pacifica,
Yes.
Town of Portola Valley,
Yes.
City of Redwood City, City of San Bruno,
Yes, Marty Medina.
City of San Carlos,
Yes.
City of San Mateo,
Yes.
City of South San Francisco,
Yes.
Town of Woodside,
Yes.
and the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. I do not have a chair report tonight, so we'll move on to the CEO report. Jan, go ahead.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. Good to see everyone here tonight. We can go to the next slide. What I'll be covering tonight is staffing updates, short update on Los Banos, COVID-19 impact, the root cause analysis of the August heat wave, Power on Peninsula update, reach codes update, and upcoming PCE meetings. So next slide. We are currently have one open position for a manager of data and technology. We're actually actively interviewing the top candidates, and maybe we'll have a decision on that in the next few days. And then we have also decided to continue the work from home policy through July 6th, 2021, because our offices really cannot accommodate the needs to allow working from the office. Next. So we are pleased to report that the Los Banos City Council last night voted to join Peninsula Clean Energy and to become a CCA. Thank you, Carlos Romero, for attending the meeting and providing additional information, and we'll be taking that up later in the at tonight's meeting. And I believe the mayor of Los Banos, Mike Villalta, may be here.
Hi, Jan.
Yeah, he's here. Okay, so we'll have you speak later on when we reach this at agenda item 7. Glad
Okay.
so welcome, Los Banos. Next slide. So as we've been doing for the past few months, we will go through the what's been happening with our loads since the COVID. And thank you to Medi and the Power Resources team for putting all this analysis together. So first, next slide. Thank you. So just comparing the April to September 2020 compared to April to September of 2019, our total load has decreased, is 6% less than it was in 2019. 15% decrease in commercial and industrial, and 10% increase in residential as people are working at home. Next. So if we look at the monthly loads, comparing each month, we can see, you know, how it has reduced. And in particular, if we look at August, the large commercial is much reduced, which is the green, but the residential is higher. When we look at September, the large commercial is reduced, but not as much as it was in previous months. So it looks like some businesses are going back to work, and the residential is still higher in 2020 than it was in 2019. Go to the next slide. This just shows month by month how things have been changing compared to 2019. So we see small commercial earlier, back in April was down 22%, now it's down 18%. Residential is up 12% compared to last year. Medium commercial, again, is picking up. It's not down as much as it was earlier in the year. It was down 19% in April, and now it's down 13%. Large commercial also is not down as much, it's down 11%. And industrial actually was up 8% compared to 2019. So it looks like people are going back to work, and we know that the county has entered the next tier. So more and more businesses will be able to open, provided the COVID cases stay level and don't increase. Next. And if we look at our load shapes, the dotted lines are 2020, excuse me, and the solid lines are 2019. So we can see everything is down, although the shapes of the CNI curves are the same, but they're down, although it does show that industrial is starting to pick up. And the next slide, if we look at residential, for June, July, August, and September, you can see that, you know, the dip that we usually have in the middle of the day is not there, particularly in August when it was really hot. Go to the next slide. This is the PCE load shape overall. And we can see as we get to September that we're getting closer, that there's not as much difference as there was earlier in the year. Part of that is due to the heat waves and the higher use of electricity in August and September. Next. So as you know, it was super hot in August, and there were rolling blackouts on August 14th and 15th. The three agencies, the ISO, the Public Utilities Commission, and the CEC, put together an analysis. They called it the root cause analysis of the extreme heat storm that occurred from August 14th to 19th. And this was across the entire US. California had 4 of the 5 hottest August days since 1985, with August 15th being the hottest day. The temperatures are shown here for 2020 in the orange line. In 2015, which also had hot days, is shown in the dark blue line. So August 2020 is distinguished by the magnitude. It was 1.5 degrees hotter than 2015, and the duration. There were 6 days in succession of very hot days, whereas in 2015, there were a couple hot days and then it cooled down and then it went back up again. And this was a 1 in 35 year weather event So it's way more unusual than what we planned for, which is a 1 and 2 weather event. We go to the next slide. They also are looking at the peak demand. So the blue line is the overall actual demand, and the orange line is the net demand, which is the demand minus the renewable resources that we're generating at the time. So as you know, we need to purchase resource adequacy, and all load serving entities had met their resource adequacy as required by the ISO, which is a 50% margin above their peak hour. But as it turned out, the peak hour was not the issue, which you can see in blue. It was the net demand peak, which occurred slightly later. So the stage 3 emergency, when they started doing the rolling blackouts, was declared at 6:38 p.m. on August 14th, which was right before the net demand peak at 6:51, but significantly after the daily peak, which occurred at 4:56. And then similarly on August 15th, the stage 3 emergency was called at 6:28, just after the net demand peak at 6:26, but after the daily peak of 5:37. So things are changing, and you know, just solving for the daily peak is not sufficient now, because the climate is changing and it's getting hotter, and there's different kinds of peaks occurring through the day. So if we go to the next slide. So other issues on those days, there were some natural gas plants that were out. 1,400 to 2,000 megawatts were out. Imports were reduced due to a transmission line outage in the Pacific Northwest. Wind and solar was less at the net demand peak than was bid into the market. And the demand response programs that were implemented are still being studied, because all of the data and the meter reads are not yet in. And some of the scheduling coordinators underscheduled their demand in the day ahead market, and that's being looked at. Was it just because the demand was so much higher than expected, or was there some aberration in how things were scheduled that day, those days? And so the recommendations, next slide please, from the study done by the 3 agencies, the preliminary recommendations are that the planning targets need to be changed to account for extreme weather. They want to make sure that projects that are currently under construction are completed on time, and any resources that can be online in 2021 that are either demand response or flexible resources, they would like to have those expedited. Coordinate additional procurement by non-PUC jurisdictional entities, which are basically the municipally owned utilities, which represent about 20% of the load in the state, and then enhance their practices to reflect supply and demand during these stressed conditions. So there will be more coming out on this, but it's been very interesting to look at what happened and how we need to plan for the future as the weather changes.
Jan, it's Wayne. Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Back to slide 18. Can you explain what it means by the wind and solar production was less than net demand peak in the bid into the market? I don't understand what being bid into the market.
Okay, so all of the resources project or do a forecast of what they believe they will be producing on the next day. And so they schedule or they bid into the day ahead market that the ISO operates, indicating how much they believe they will be producing each hour of the day. So what happened was that the amount of production that actually occurred at that time, at that net demand peak, was less than what they bid into the market. So they had expected to produce more than what they actually did. And I can't remember, it's been so long. Was it really smoky? Were those the smoky days too? Because I think it turned out that with the excessive smoke, the solar was not producing as much as it was expected to. And then because it was so hot, the wind didn't pick up as early in the day as would normally be expected.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll go to the next slide. Power on
Jen,
yes,
Jen,
pretty. Yes.
before you leave that, did they provide any quantitative estimate of the percent of the total demand that could be related to weather changes, like weather sensitive demand?
Well, if we go back a couple slides to those graphs, that one. I don't have that detail at hand. There is a large report that they put out, and I think we may have given you the link to that in one of the newsletters. We can put that in the newsletter again tomorrow if you want to dig in. But that wasn't really, I mean, one of the things was that it was underscheduled. So the demand was higher than what was scheduled. So I don't recall the analysis they did as to whether that was weather related. Well, clearly it was weather related because it was so hot.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question? I'm sorry, I mean, maybe didn't answer your question properly.
No, I was just looking at, because we are expecting some of these weather swings to take place more frequently than in the past. It would be good to have an estimate of what part of the demand, what percent of the demand can be considered sensitive to those changes so that we can provide some risk analysis on that basis. But I'll look into the report. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and we do talk to our scheduling coordinator who is Direct Energy right now, and they make estimates and forecasts of what our demand is going to be. And so they do look at the weather, they look at previous days where the weather has been the way it was. But I think in this case, it was so unusual that even those kinds of forecasts were a bit off.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go. Here we go. Okay.
If I ask a question as well, real quick.
Sure.
Kind of to Pradeep's point, this is frighteningly might be the new norm as we move forward. How flexible are we? How much advance notice do we need on the planning to be able to react?
Well, I think that's something that the ISO and the PUC and the CEC are going to need to think about, because right now, you know, we procure resource adequacy, basically 15% margin over what we expect our peak is going to be. But in this case, it turned out that the peak or the deficiency happened at a different time of the day. So they're probably going to change the requirements or come up with different resource needs to reflect this net demand peak as opposed to the daily peak, taking into account both the demand, right, how people are using electricity, trying to get more demand response programs in there, but also probably needing to look at intermittent resources like solar and wind, what might happen when this kind of thing happens, right? They may not be producing as much as we expect if there's smoke and other kinds of things happening. So I'm sure we're gonna be engaged in that and learn what their final conclusions are and how things need to be changed for planning purposes. Okay, good questions. I'll move on. So our Power on Peninsula program for the medically vulnerable, as you know, we've procured batteries for our medically vulnerable customers who are in low income and disadvantaged communities in the high fire threat districts and previously affected by the PSPS events. And fortunately, when the PSPS event was called last week, we were able to work very closely with our partners, Senior Coastsiders and Hassett Hardware, to get the batteries out to all of our customers who needed those. So we now have 150 batteries that have been delivered to our partner Hassett. And 90 customers have been qualified to receive those batteries. And actually 86 customers have had their batteries delivered. 20 have had the portable solar panels that go along with it delivered. And HACIT is scheduling deliveries to the last 3 of that 90 who've been qualified. And one person decided not to take the battery when it was delivered because she felt it was too large for her situation. And we had also donated $5,000 to Puente de la Costa Sur for hotel vouchers for those who were displaced by wildfire evacuations a few weeks ago. So anyway, this program's going great. We're very happy that we've been able to help our customers and make sure that they have the electricity they need when the PSPS events happen. Next. Reach codes. So we just wanted to report that 3 more agencies have adopted reach codes. I think East Palo Alto did that a couple of nights ago. The County of San Mateo has adopted theirs, and Redwood City adopted theirs. All of this has happened since the last time we met. And the City of San Mateo has updated the reach codes that they adopted. They were one of the first to adopt the reach codes, and now they've adopted a more all electric than they had originally.
Jan, if I can interrupt, it says that Half Moon Bay has had a council briefing done. Unless I was asleep, I don't remember that. I've been trying to advocate with our city manager for the last 6 months. Is there something that will happen? Because it certainly hasn't happened.
Okay, we'll get that updated. I don't know if Raphael is on the line here.
I am on the line, and I'll follow up Director Robert back.
Thanks, Raphael.
Yep, and we'll be, this is Laura from San Carlos. We'll be evaluating this on Monday night under new business and at our council meeting.
Right, good luck. So this is great. It's great to see more and more jurisdictions moving forward on their reach codes. Of course, no pressure, you know, you can do whatever you want, but if you want to move forward faster than the state, then we're here to support you to do that. Okay, next. And that's pretty much the end of my report for tonight. We'll be seeing you again in November. Because of the holiday, everything has been moved up a week, or the Citizens Advisory Committee has been moved up a week, and the Board of Directors meeting will be on the 3rd Thursday as opposed to the 4th Thursday in November.
I'm wondering if I could ask a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, Jan, I have been informed that the governor signed AB 84 requires for projects that are funded by.
Sorry, Rick, you're fading in and out, so I'm not hearing everything that you're saying.
Oh, okay. Let me move this. Can you hear me a little better now?
Yeah, that seems better.
Okay, so I understand the governor signed AB 841, EVITP trained. So know that we're still in the works on our EV charging program. I'd just like to find out if there is a, if we're going to be using that was passed to use a trained electric. Jan?
I don't know if it's my connection or your connection, but I didn't catch everything
I'm
that
having
you
trouble
said.
hearing Rick too.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna get my thing here and plug us in. I'm very sorry. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
That sounds better. Let's try it again.
Okay, good, good. I'm very sorry about that.
That's
So
okay.
I'm using my microphone now. So the governor signed AB 841, which says that state funding of EV charging stations will be required to use EVITP trained electricians. I spoke with Joe about this earlier, and there seems to be some nuance possibly there, but I just wanted to ask, are we going to push to try and make sure we can do this using EVITP for our program?
Yeah, this is the first I've heard of it. I haven't had a chance to talk to Joe about it to get more details on what it is, or
Okay.
but we'll follow up and let you know.
Yeah. If you just look up AB 841, it's pretty clear there. So thank you very much.
Okay, and does that occur immediately, or is there a phase in for that?
No, I think it's January 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll follow up and look into that and let you know. Thank you for the update.
Thank you very much.
It is January 1st. It wasn't an urgency bill.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jan, I think you and I got a question relayed to us from Mark Roost. Do you want to just repeat the question and answer it?
Yes, so that everyone can hear.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, sorry. Okay. The question is, on the heat wave, are you going to have a way to figure out how many megawatt hours and megawatts of battery capacity and power would have been needed to solve the problem at the scale of PCE's service area, the region, or the state?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't know. You know, we're relying on the ISO and the PUC and the CEC in their evaluation of what happened. I don't know if this is one of the questions they are answering in that analysis.
Yeah, I agree. Mark, thank you for the question. It's complicated. We'll try to get you an answer. Thanks.
Yeah, my guess is that they're not, I mean, they're probably going to look at what resources overall would have been needed. I'm not sure that they would be focusing specifically on battery capacity, but we can maybe make some assumptions when we see the final report as to how batteries might play a role.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good question, but probably more detailed than we have time for here. Are there any other questions here for Jan on her report? Okay, if not, we can move on to the Citizens Advisory Committee update. Desiree, do you want to do that?
Sure. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes.
First, I just wanted to thank Jeff Alfs as well as Directors Bonilla, Carlson, and DeGolia. That it was approved through the consent agenda that they've decided to be liaisons or alternative liaisons to the CAC. And I know our committee really looks forward to working with all of you. And then just an update from our meeting a couple weeks ago. We basically went through some of the market research results in a kind of abbreviated form that was covered in the last meeting, the last board meeting. And we had a great programs overview with Raphael, which I think was really great, especially for our new members, really giving them a context of where the programs have come in the last couple of years and plans for those in the next 2 to 3 years. And then we spent quite a bit of time with our working groups. Our equity group came back with us and we again discussed what we might want to include in a statement, and so they're continuing work on that. And then we had an update from a lot of our committees or our working groups. So DER, workforce, building electrification, education, all these groups are doing a lot of work, and I think really putting in a lot of effort. And so I think in the next few months, we may have some ideas that will be coming to staff as well as perhaps to the board. and we'll keep you updated on those. That's all I had.
Okay. Thank you, Desiree. And yes, thank you, Rick, and Donna for stepping up to be alternate liaisons along with me. And yes, the committee I think is making some really good, interesting progress right now. So thank you, Desiree. Are there any questions for Desiree on the CAC report? Okay, if not, we will move on to the Audit and Finance Committee report. Donna, do you want to give that?
Yes, thank you very much. So the main good news that we have to report is that it looks like we will be having a clean audit. We met with the audit team at our last meeting and went through in detail all the recommendations, everything that they had, and they came away with a particularly a strong support of that the staff had been doing really excellent work, and and in addition, Maher, who is our independent third-party audit finance records keeping accounting team, has also been doing a really good job. So thanks to the staff, and especially during COVID, it's so hard to do these kind of audits, and you guys just did a really wonderful job. So we look forward to getting a clean audit, which will be really important for maintaining our credit rating. That's it.
Great, thank you, Donna. Any questions on audit and finance? Okay. Then we can move on.
Congratulations.
Yes, and thank you to Audit and Finance. I actually missed this last meeting with the auditors, but yeah, it was agreed. It was very good in the audit.
Thank you.
Okay. So item 5, we will be approving a revised CEO agreement. As you recall, in August, we, in closed session, we reviewed Jen and we agreed to an amendment to her contract. I'm going to read a brief, just summary of what's of that amendment. In recognition of Jan's excellent leadership in the service of Peninsula Clean Energy and following a comparative review of other salaries in the market, I am proposing an amendment to her employment agreement with PCE, a copy of which is part of the board packet for tonight's meeting. The following points are the main amendments. Into June 2023. Second, her current base salary will be increased by 8%, and he receives now 40 hours of paid CEO leave. All other substantive terms of the agreement will remain the same. If there are no questions or comments, I can entertain a motion to approve the amendment.
I make a motion to approve.
Second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Lee, seconded by Rarbach, I believe. Is there, can you hear me okay? I'm apparently breaking up a little bit.
Yeah, you're breaking up.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised. Is there any board comment on this on this item? Okay, seeing none, I will thank the board for their work on reviewing Jan this year, as always. Thank staff for helping prepare this amendment, and thank Jan for all the work that she has done for the organization. If that's the case, then roll call. If there's no further comments, then roll call vote, please.
Okay, if you would please announce your approval or disapproval of the motion when I announce your jurisdiction. County of San Mateo.
Yes.
County of San Mateo.
Yes.
Town of Atherton.
Yes.
City of Belmont.
Yes.
City of Brisbane.
Yes.
City of Burlingame,
Yes.
Town of Colma,
Yes.
City of Daly City,
Yes.
City of East Palo Alto,
Yes.
City of Foster City,
Yes.
City of Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Town of Hillsborough,
Yes.
City of Menlo Park.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. City of Millbrae,
Yes. Yes.
thank you. City of Pacifica,
Yes.
Town of Portola Valley,
Yes.
City of Redwood City, City of San Bruno,
Yes.
City of San Carlos,
Yes.
City of San Mateo,
Yes.
City of South San Francisco,
Yes.
Town of Woodside. Woodside?
Daniel?
Oh, we might have lost Daniel.
Did you hear me?
Oh.
And Rick Bonilla?
Yes, I did hear you, Rick. Thank you very much. Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. David just popped up on my screen. I'm just curious, David, did you have anything to add to this?
No, I just wanted to be ready in case I needed to. I was able to make out, as everybody knows, there was a change to the Brown Act a couple of years ago that required the script that Jeff read, and I wasn't sure whether it was going to come through, but I felt that it came through, and that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, okay, the motion passes. Thank you all. That brings us to item 6, which is approving our audited financial statements for the fiscal year. Andy?
Yes, thanks. Next slide, please. Next slide. We did complete our audit. This is a view of the final income statement. This is similar to, just wanted to show what the final was relative to what was in the preliminary that the board last saw. There are a couple of very minor changes, and the far three right columns are the year-to-date actual, budget, and variance. So if you look on that column actual, change in net position about 3/4 of the way down is 48.9 million. This is, as I said, the final relative to the preliminary that I showed to you at the last time this came up, which was a couple of months ago. Revenues are unchanged, and expenses are $32,000 lower, a couple of immaterial changes. There was something that I had at the time that I presented to the board and the Audit Finance Committee a couple of months ago, was a potential $6.6 million change in estimate direct costs that were discussing about potentially moving into the prior year. But the auditors agreed with us that they could stay in the current or the most recent 2020 fiscal year end. So that resulted in a change in that position of $32,000 higher than the prior preliminary one that I provided. Next slide, please. At the Audit and Finance Committee meeting, as Director Colson mentioned, the auditors presented their required communications. I won't go through their required communications, though they're posted online if someone wanted to review them, but I'll summarize them. And these are their words, posted from their slides. An unmodified opinion stating that the financial statements are material accurate, no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control. The significant accounting policies adopted by us throughout the periods audited appear appropriate and consistently applied. No significant or unusual transactions or applications, and no disagreements with management concerning the scope of audits. And you can read the rest. Basically, these are their required independent auditor communications to the Finance Committee and to the board. Next slide, please. So in summary, the Audit and Finance Committee reviewed on October 13th, reviewed the draft financial statements, met with the auditors, and then approved a resolution recommending approval. The audit was complete and signed off on October 15th. And per regulatory obligation, the next slide, please. This board is being asked to officially approve the audited financial statements, of which a draft was in your package. That's all my report.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, Donna's got her hand up. Donna, do you want to make a comment to start off here?
Yes, thank you. So I just wanted to put one additional note that the audit team did spend some time discussing cybersecurity and cyber kind of crime that's been happening, and how during COVID that there's been an increase on it. And interestingly, I attended a conference this week put on by S&P around the ratings agencies and what the ratings agencies are looking at when they're evaluating CCAs. And one of the top things they were looking at was the work you're doing around cybersecurity, which I thought was really interesting because we had just focused on this during the audit. So part of the audit review is a look at systems and policies that we have in place. And so I went back and chatted with Andy over email a little more about the work that we're doing, and wanted to just report out to everyone that, in fact, the team has been receiving training. We have been receiving, really important feedback, and Andy continues to monitor and watch that. So I think it's really important just for everybody to note that during these times of heightened awareness around cybersecurity, that our staff is focused on that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Donna. Thank you. I see Wayne's got his hand up. If anyone else has questions about the audit, you can go raise your hand. But Wayne, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank Andy's staff and the Finance Committee for all the hard work. This is very encouraging. And to get really good financials information is really critical for us to run the business. So thank you very much for all the hard work you guys have done.
I completely agree. Thanks, Wayne. Are any other board questions for staff on the audit? Is there any public comment on the audit results? Okay, seeing none, I can take a motion on to approve the audited financial statements.
So moved. Second. Larry May.
Moved DeGolia, seconded May. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Okay, if you would please announce your approval or disapproval of the motion when I announce your jurisdiction. County of San Mateo. County of San Mateo?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. County of San Mateo.
Yes.
Town of Atherton.
Yes.
City of Belmont.
Yes.
City of Brisbane.
Yes.
City of Burlingame.
Yes.
Town of Colma.
Yes.
City of Daly City. Daly City?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry
Yes.
about that. Yes.
Thank you. City of East Palo Alto.
Yes.
City of Foster City.
Yes.
City of Half Moon Bay.
Yes.
Town of Hillsborough.
Yes.
City of Menlo Park.
Yes.
City of Millbrae.
Yes.
City of Pacifica.
Yes.
Town of Portola Valley.
Yes.
City of Redwood City. City of San Bruno.
Yes.
City of San Carlos.
Yes.
City of San Mateo.
Yes.
City of South San Francisco.
Yes.
Town of Woodside.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you all. Okay, we'll move on to item 7, a JPA amendment to add a new member, Jam.
Okay. So we're very excited to, let's go to the next slide, please, to announce that the Los Banos City Council voted to join PCE last night. There were 3 votes that they took. First, they adopted the JPA resolution to be a member of PCE by a vote of 4-1. They waived the second reading of the ordinance to implement the CCA program in Los Banos by a vote of 5-0. And they adopted the ordinance to implement a CCA program in the city of Los Banos by and through PCE by a vote of 4-1. And we received the signed documents today that the mayor signed, and the mayor will be the director, the alternate will be the city manager, and the mayor is here. So I would invite Mike Villalta to just say hello, whatever else you'd like to say.
Well, hi, Jan, and it's finally we've reached the end of the road with this, and we're all very happy and looking forward to being accepted as a member of PCE. And to all of you out there, thank you. I have strong ties to the Bay Area. I attended College of Notre Dame in Belmont and the University of San Francisco for my master's degree, and my mother-in-law lives on Lenox Avenue. So it's in Menlo Park. So I have strong connection to the Bay Area and many of the cities. And again, Los Banos is looking forward to receiving the benefits of PCE and the incentives that are going to be offered to our citizens. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We're very excited to have you join us. And we're also sad that Mike has decided not to continue on. He's not running for re-election. So he's going to be here for our, I guess, October, November, and December meetings. And then whoever is the new mayor will be stepping in as the director from Los Banos. But we've really enjoyed getting to know you, Mike. And thank you so much for being so supportive of the efforts here. So we're really excited. We also have Sean Marshall. Sean, I don't know if there's anything you would like to add. Sean helped us a lot in the work we did to get all the documents together for Los Banos. And, we all know Sean. She helped get PCE started, and now she's helping us bring our first new member on after 4 years. So, Sean.
I just want to say thanks. It's been great work with the PCE team and the Los Banos team. Great staff in Los Banos. And I know there's excitement. And as the mayor said last night at the council meeting, the rest of Merced County is watching, and we feel like this is the tip of the iceberg. More to come in the ensuing year. So congratulations all around. It's been a real pleasure.
Believe me, Jan, I would be continuing if I didn't have children and grandchildren, but I think they kind of made the decision for me after 14 years, and it's time for me to spend time with them.
We all know how that is, and we appreciate that. It's being a council member, it takes a lot of time away from your family. So we appreciate everything that you've done so far. And also I wanted to note that Sean is also going to be leaving us. She is, well, not leaving us forever, but she has accepted a position with Calpine. And so she's no longer going to be heading up Lean, but we will see her through Calpine, and she's helping them with their CCA efforts. So good luck, Sean.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Jan. Thanks, Sean, and thank you, Mike. Rick's got his hand up. I think Rick wants to say something here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to welcome Mike and Los Banos. Mike, thank you so much for your leadership. This is a great move. I think it's really important for the Central Valley to be able to begin to experience the benefits of CCA. And we look forward to working together. I look forward to coming out and spending time with you, not trying to pitch us, but really trying to build us together And I think that that is going to happen. I'm sorry that you're leaving. I totally understand it. We all feel those issues, but your leadership is incredibly important. I think this is a breakthrough, and I really hope that it is going to resonate throughout the Central Valley over time.
Well, I'll extend this to you. After I leave and I'm not the mayor, if I can help you with any PR work to bring on some of the other Central Valley cities, I would be more than happy to do so. Because I think that at some point you're going to run out of power. And those cities that don't jump on this now are going to be left in a lurch when it comes to the air credits for their county and for their city. And so we are moving forward with the commuter bus service from Los Banos, a study to reduce the vehicle mile traveled and PM 2.5 and the air standards to improve. And so we're looking forward to charging stations. We're looking forward to other benefits for our city. But I do know that if some of these other cities don't jump on board with you, it's at some point you're not going to be able to accommodate them. So Rick, you and I have known each other over a year, and we met out at the Wright Solar Farm, the dedication, along with a few of the others. Jan, I remember. And we are excited about having the solar farm out there. It's great for Merced County, and I think that it's going to be of mutual benefit. So
I think it's going to play extremely well for Los Banos to get power from that site. I know that's part of the motivation for everybody to join, but I also think as you begin to experience the programs that we have and that will change with your influence, those benefits are going to be very real to the residents in Los Banos. And I hope that others in the Central Valley look at that and see the benefits, because all of us in San Mateo County are really feeling the benefits of this CCA. And I'm glad to be able to extend it to you. I'm really very excited about it.
well, we're excited to be accepted.
Yes, as are we. So I just want to point out the Ricks, Rick DeGolia and Rick Bonilla played a big role in sort of working with Los Banos to make this happen. So I'm going to let Rick Bonilla say a few words here as well. Go ahead, Rick.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rick, I forgot. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I want to thank Los Banos, but mostly Mayor Mike Villalta, for it was actually 2 years ago when we first met at the groundbreaking. And you always made us feel welcome on our many visits to Los Banos, visits to your city hall, and the meetings that we spoke at with council. Always a gentleman. I remember running into you down in Long Beach at the League of California Cities that time, not this year, but last year. And so thank you. I look forward to a long and fruitful partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Donna, go ahead.
Thank you. So I just have a technical question, which is maybe directed to our legal team, which is about do Mike and or the alternate, when we go back to in-person meetings, do they have to drive up, or can they attend our meetings virtually?
They can attend our meetings virtually. I'm sure they're very happy to hear that.
That's great to know. I just think that makes those kinds of ridiculous protocols where they couldn't would make it so hard to bring on more cities and things. And I'm very happy to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, the requirement is that a majority of the members be present within the jurisdiction, but it's just a majority of the members.
Okay, so we sort of we've moved from sort of the staff report part of this into questions. I'm going to take board questions quickly first about this amendment, then I'll take public comment. Do any of the board members have other questions about the resolution in front of us, which would be amending our JPA to allow for new members and then adopting a resolution that would authorize Los Banos as the first new member outside the county. Any board questions or comments on this? Okay, I have one hand up from the public. Mark Roost, go ahead.
Thank you. I guess first comment is this reminds me of the Valley to Valley initiative, where they're asking people, companies and organizations in Silicon Valley to extend to the Central Valley. And next piece is that a major problem in the Central Valley is the smoke from the diesel trucks. And we're putting together a business organization to convert diesel trucks to battery electric, and also to put up solar canopies to provide the electricity for that. And I understand Merced, University of California, Merced is a solar hotbed. Looking forward to possible working relationships.
Agreed. Any other public comment on this item? If not, I can entertain a motion. Actually, David, correct me if I'm wrong. Do we want to have two separate motions for the amendment and the addition, or can we just do this as one?
You can absolutely do it as one, unless there's an indication that someone wants to vote differently. I mean, I guess I can ask right now. Does anyone wish to take these separately because they want to vote differently on these two items? Hearing none, there's no reason why you can't take them together.
I'll make the motion, Wayne.
I second.
I'll second. This is Catherine.
Okay.
Okay, I got Wayne with the motion, and you know what? I'm gonna give Kath a second. Rick does quite a few seconding, nothing personal. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Okay, if you would please signify your support or your approval or disapproval of the motion when I announce your jurisdiction. County of San Mateo.
Yes.
County of San Mateo.
Yes.
Town of Atherton.
Enthusiastic, yes.
City of Belmont.
Yes.
City of Brisbane.
Yes.
City of Burlingame.
Yes.
Town of Colma.
Yes.
City of Daly City.
Yes.
City of East Palo Alto.
Yes.
City of Foster City.
Yes.
City of Half Moon Bay.
Another enthusiastic yes.
Town of Hillsborough.
Yes.
City of Menlo Park.
Yes.
City of Millbrae. Sorry, that was Millbrae.
Yes.
City of Pacifica.
Yes.
Town of Portola Valley.
Another enthusiastic yes.
City of Redwood City. City of San Bruno.
Yes.
City of San Carlos.
And another enthusiastic yes.
City of San Mateo.
And a very proud yes.
City of South San Francisco.
Yes.
Town of Woodside.
Another enthusiastic yes.
And the motion enthusiastically unanimously passes.
All right.
Great. Thank you all. Welcome to Los Banos, our newest member. We'll be looking forward to, I believe we'll have a swearing in on November. So again, thank you all. Thanks to Sean. Thanks to Jan, Rick, and Rick for all the work you guys have done on this. And I'm looking forward to this. This was great. Okay.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mike, we hardly knew you.
Well, my wife grew up in Hillsborough, so I've got connections every city that you're mentioning practically.
We'll be coming to you for your connections in the valley as well. So
yeah,
you're not done with us.
Good.
All right. Take care.
Good.
Okay. We'll move on to item 8, resolution delegating authority for a PPA with Shiloh Wind Project. Is this Jan or Siobhan?
This is actually going to be Chelsea tonight.
Oh, sorry, Chelsea.
That's all right.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm Chelsea Keys, the Power Resources Manager at Peninsula and on the procurement team. So I am bringing to you all tonight our ask to authorize a PPA with Shiloh One Wind Project. All right, you can go to the next slide. So first, we wanted to start with our recommendation, and that is that we recommend that the board approve the PPA extension with Shiloh. Next slide. First, we'll go over the agenda. I'll first provide a little bit of background because we do currently have a PPA with Shiloh. So this is actually the second PPA that we're asking you to extend. I'll introduce Avangrid Renewables, who is actually joining us tonight, and will present a couple of slides. We'll share the details, the location. I'll provide some of the key differences that we have between the current PPA that we have today and this second PPA. I'll show you some of the generation profile from Shiloh. We'll describe some of the competition that we've seen recently for procuring wind resources, and we'll sum up with our recommendation to you. All right, first I'll begin with some background. On May 25th, 2017, the board approved PCE's first PPA with Shiloh. We executed a 5-year term that started in January of 2019 and is set to expire at the end of 2023. We contracted steps of capacity. These steps, the capacity steps up as the second off-taker contract expires. We're currently receiving 25 megawatts up until May 31st, 2021. That will then step up to 125 megawatts in July of 2021. And then for the last 2 years of our term, we will receive the full output, which is 150 megawatts. A nice plus in addition to this presentation is that all the pictures you're seeing this evening are of actual Shiloh. So it's kind of a fun addition here. And next I want to actually introduce Colin Thomas with the origination team. He'll be presenting the next 2 slides.
Hi, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me and maybe even see me.
Yes.
Great. I'll be pretty brief here, but by way of introduction, my name is Colin Thomas. I work in the origination team here at Avangrid Renewables. Before I get into the slides, I just want to say, we're really excited to be able to continue this partnership that we've had with PCE over the course of the last couple of years. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and to speak with you all. And, we're certainly excited to continue this partnership and extend this contract that we have from the Shiloh project. So a little bit about Avangrid. The renewables portion of our business is headquartered in Portland, Oregon. There's over 900 employees that work for the renewables business. Collectively, we have about 7.5 gigawatts of installed wind and solar capacity in over 20 states across the U.S. and in all of the ISOs and RTOs. We have a 19 gigawatt pipeline, and we're currently the 3rd largest wind operator in the U.S. And in 2019, we produced 17,500 gigawatt hours of renewable energy, which was equivalent to removing about 12.3 million metric tons of CO2, or approximately 2.6 million cars from the road. And Avangrid, our parent company, is rated B+ from S&P. Next slide, please. And then we just have a few quick facts here about the Shiloh One project. It's 150 megawatts of capacity located in Solano County, California. There are 100 GE 1.5 megawatt turbines, and the project was commissioned, I believe, in 2006. There's 26 landowners for the site, encompassing about 6,800 acres, which continues to be used for grazing, in addition to having the turbines there. The project supports 12 ongoing O&M jobs and pays over $1 million a year in property taxes and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in lease payments for those landowners. And by EPA estimates, the project will help offset about 380 million pounds of CO2 and 450,000 pounds of nitrogen oxide and 250,000 pounds of sulfur dioxide. And with that, I will kick it back to Chelsea.
Thanks, Colin. We sure appreciate you joining us tonight. All right, next slide. All right, here's just a map showing you the project location. Shiloh's located in the Birds Landing Preserve, just south of Fairfield. Next slide. So just a quick summary of the PPA that we're extending. Capacity, we will be purchasing the full 150 megawatts, so PCE will be the sole off-taker. We're looking to execute a 7-year term that will begin in 2024, just after our current PPA ends, so there'll be no gap in the delivery term. And we'll extend through the end of 2030. We will be purchasing a bundled product, meaning we will be buying the energy, the RECs, the renewable energy credits, and resource adequacy. The other added benefit of Shiloh is it provides Bay Area local resource adequacy, which is some local RA that PCE needs to procure. Next. So I wanted to highlight with you tonight some of the key differences between the current PPA we have with Shiloh and the one we're seeking to extend. The first item is the price. The price for the second PPA is slightly higher than our current PPA, but very competitive with other options that we have seen in the market. The capacity, as I just mentioned, we will procure the full output from the facility throughout the entire term. The term will change. The current PPA is just 5 years. Second PPA will be for 7 years through the end of 2030. The seller performance security was increased proportionately for the longer term, higher price and increased capacity that we're purchasing from this project. Now, the next 3 items were items that we considered changing to be more consistent with what we've seen in the market today. So the first being resource adequacy shortfall. And this would be in the case where Avangrid and the project didn't supply the adequate amount of RA. And for whatever reason, if Avangrid couldn't replace the deficient portion of RA, we call this an RA shortfall. So in this situation, Avangrid would compensate PCE at a competitive rate to keep PCE and remain whole. The next item is REC replacement. We also updated this to be more in line with what we've seen in the market. So in the event that the project was unable to provide the adequate amount of RECs, due to Avangrid not meeting certain performance requirements in the PPA, we would then be compensated for that deficient portion at a competitive rate for those RECs. And those RECs, what we would do at that designated time that the deficient portion was shown, we'd survey the market for the REC prices to ensure that PCE was able to replace those RECs and remain whole on the amount of RECs that were deficient. The last item is replacement energy. Currently in our PPA, Avangrid does have the option to provide energy from another project within an allotted time frame. But in this extended PPA, we actually removed this mechanism. And we primarily did that because in 2025, PCE plans to match renewable generation with its load. And so by receiving energy from a different resource, that doesn't necessarily benefit PCE. So instead, Avangrid will compensate us for the monetary damages and not replace this energy. The PCE will still remain whole. Next slide. All right, here we're showing Shiloh's historical generation profile. And we're showing you this by month, so showing you every month of the year. You have the x-axis, which is the hours of the day. Y-axis is the generation. And the scale of this historical generation profile is only up to about 20 megawatts because we're currently only receiving 25 megawatts of the project. So to think of this of the scale of the full capacity, you would just scale this up 6 times and then it would be the same generation profile. So we find that this generation profile really complements PCE's load needs, especially because if you look at these summer months, a lot of the generation is dipping down during the hours we're receiving a lot of solar. And then coming up in the hours like the evening and the morning hours where we need a lot more generation. You may notice in the winter months that there is a little bit less generation, but this is fairly typical for wind projects. Next slide. Here we're showing PCE's 2024 annual average load profile. So this is a snapshot of our average annual load profile. We're including the PPAs that we currently have within our portfolio with the addition of Shiloh being in green. So at the x-axis, you see every hour of the day. And the first thing you'll notice is that Shiloh is providing generation in the morning hours and also in the evening, which is a great thing for adding to PCE's profile. Next slide. All right, so there's been a lot of competition for wind resources. The first thing we'll mention is that PCE is going to need a significant amount of wind resources to meet our 2025 100% 24/7 renewable goal. Currently, we only have the existing PPA with Shiloh that goes through 2023. Earlier this year, we issued an RFP. We only received, of the 40 projects that bid into this RFP, only 6 of those were wind projects. So we're seeing far less wind offers. The majority of existing wind projects currently are under contract, and a lot of these do not expire until after 2025. Most wind in California has already been fully developed. You don't see many new wind projects being developed anymore. And there are limited repower opportunities because a lot of existing wind projects are not finding it financially viable to repower. And out-of-state options are risky due to necessary transmission, and they do not provide RA benefits. And another thing that I'll just mention is I do know that a lot of our fellow CCA neighbors did think of this project to be attractive because it is one of the very few coming off of a contract, because our current contract with them expires in 2023. So I do know that it has been of interest in the market. Next slide. So lastly, we'll provide to you our recommendation, and that is for the board to delegate authority to the CEO to execute this second power purchase agreement with Shiloh for a term of 7 years and an amount not to exceed $200 million, and any other ancillary documents as necessary. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Chelsea, and thank you, Colin. Are there questions for Chelsea and staff on the proposal here? I see Pradeep and then Rick. Go ahead, Pradeep.
So that there was some mention in the report about PCE providing the bids for the generation coming out of this project in the open market. Does that indicate that there is some excess energy that might be coming off that we may be selling in the open market, or that's just perhaps it may be used or may not be used? Chelsea?
Sorry, what exactly are you referring to? Our board memo for this?
Yeah, there was in the report that was attached about this item was that the PCE would retain the right to structure any bids that might be made for the energy generated by this project into the market, into the bulk market. And I was just wondering if there was any plans for PCE to exchange the energy generated from this project by another kind of energy.
Well, we will be able to, yes, schedule the project to our liking, meaning that like if we wanted, we can curtail at a certain price threshold into the market. So if the market interval prices dropped to a level that was negative, we could curtail the facility. And we can control how the generation is scheduled into the market.
Thank you. That gives me the answer.
Okay.
Rick DeGolia has his hand up. Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, Chelsea, you talked about the seller performance security increasing as a result of the increased offtake that we've got and the term. What is the seller performance security for the contract?
So it's just a security that is provided from the seller just to ensure that it'd be a security that we could draw from if they were to default on the conditions and terms of the contract.
Okay, Kat's got her hand up. Go ahead, Kat.
Sorry, they answered my question. Thank you.
Okay.
I see a hand up from Mark from public. Any other board questions before I take Mark's question? Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Thank you. So the question is about the right to curtail the wind if the market prices fall. First part of my question is that a diurnal thing? Is that whether the market falls within a day, or is that if the market falls in a period of greater than a day or a month or something? I did a study on that wind in 1975, and I know that the wind goes up. You can see the belly of the curve in the summer months, and that's so. If you have battery storage, you can attach to the wind farm or to a solar farm. You can save the wind when it's surplus at the market rate and bring it back in afterward. So rather than curtailing it as in terms of the income for the supplier, you simply shift the time at which you supply it around by a few hours.
Yeah, so for your first question, for curtailment, anyways, in the CAISO market, there's a day ahead. There's a day ahead market which settles on an hourly interval basis. So if we were to curtail the project, it would be on an hourly level. In the real time, there's also the 15-minute market, so 15-minute intervals, and then the 5-minute market, which are 5-minute intervals. So if we were to curtail the project, it would be for the specific interval, and that pricing interval would have to clear at a level below to the level where we want to curtail.
So could you structure, could you actually, if you can foresee the possibility of that, could you not structure the pricing such that it is able, rather than curtail, which is a digital on-off thing, that you have a shade of gray, could you not simply have an agreement that the price goes down if the market price goes down during that interval, and also give the wind farm the choice of whether to either store some of that power or whether to accept the lower price?
So we don't currently have storage paired with this wind facility.
I'm future thinking because I'm in a battery startup.
Right. Okay.
No.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think this is probably something that could be taken up offline.
Okay.
You mentioned a question. Sorry, don't mean to cut it off, but it's probably a more hypothetical than we can consider right now. Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up. Are there any? Well, if there are no comments, I could take a motion to approve the resolution, which is basically delegating to Jan and staff to execute a PPA here and other documents as needed.
I'll make the motion. I'll second.
Okay, I hear a motion from Wayne and a second from Carlos, I think I heard. Any other discussion? Okay, I see no hands up, so roll call vote, please.
All right, if you would please announce your approval or disapproval of the motion when I announce your jurisdiction. County of San Mateo.
Yes.
County of San Mateo.
Yes.
Town of Atherton.
Yes.
City of Belmont.
Yes.
City of Brisbane.
Yes.
City of Burlingame.
Yes.
Town of Colma.
Yes.
City of Daly City.
Yes.
City of East Palo Alto. East Palo Alto?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
City of Foster City.
Yes.
City of Half Moon Bay.
Yes.
Town of Hillsborough.
Yes.
City of Menlo Park.
Yes.
City of Millbrae.
Yes.
City of Pacifica,
Yes.
Town of Portola Valley,
Yes.
City of Redwood City, City of San Bruno,
Yes.
City of San Carlos,
Yes.
City of San Mateo,
Yes.
City of South San Francisco,
Yes.
Town of Woodside.
Abstain. The contract sounds great. No issues with it. Just in case my employer has the counterparty as a client, I will abstain.
Then the motion passes with one abstention.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thanks to Chelsea. Thanks to Avangrid. Sorry, I'm totally blanking on the name. Thanks, guys, for pushing this forward. I agree. We should be holding on to as many wind contracts as we can, because I believe wind in California is being hunted to extinction. Okay. Item 9 then is a authorizing the CEO to execute a contract with McCalmont for distributed DER site evaluation and procurement. Jan, are you starting on this one, or is this Dave?
This is going to be Dave Freibush will present this.
Okay, welcome, Dave.
Thank you. Yes, I want to discuss this RFP that we just completed and our recommendation to select McCalmont Engineering to help us with DER, distributed energy resource site evaluations. So if you can advance the next slide. This is my first time talking with you, just brief introduction. I have a lot of experience. I joined the Power Resources team in June and have been focused pretty much solely on DER related projects and programs. And before this, I have a long history in energy and DER projects. I ran PG&E's first grid scale battery deployments, first to be in the CAISO market, first batteries in the CAISO market, first batteries that were both market participating as well as a microgrid islanding for behind the meter customers. So I have a lot of direct experience with the actual deployment and the complexities of these projects. So next slide, please. So again, we are going to have a recommendation that has two parts. The first is for an authorization of $137,500 for McCalmont Engineering for the purpose of developing 7 specific sites in the County of San Mateo. And then the second part is an additional authorization of $129,500 to be used as on an as-needed basis to support additional site evaluations beyond the 7. And I'll give you more detail about those. Next slide, please. So I'll go over the project background, our selection process, our budget, and then just reiterate our recommendation. Next slide, please. So the Power Resources team, and this was prior to my arrival, so I know there's a lot of work that's gone in before my time, but has worked with the County of San Mateo to identify 7 sites for potential DER deployment. So when I'm saying DERs here, I'm referring to solar plus storage. Not all sites may be appropriate for both solar and storage, but that will be our first goal to see if we can site those. The sites are the ones below the Half Moon Bay Airport, the correctional facility, the landfill, San Carlos Airport, the event center, medical center, and youth services. We may swap the medical center for a project, the government center in Redwood City, due to just project timelines. But it's a really good variety of sites that I think will give us a lot of insight into the DER process for different types of sites. And so we see here an opportunity to develop both these sites, but as well, and that's really the first order goal, to develop DER projects for these sites. But the second order goal is to inform the process of a DER evaluation process for that can apply to future resources. And so essentially this space between we have a sense of an idea for a DER project to we've got a concrete idea for a project that's ready to go out to a bid, that's sort of a part of the DER process where a lot of projects can stall. It's not necessarily clear to customers how exactly they get through that process. And so we want to look at that and see how can we improve it, how can we simplify it, and how can we make bids more apples to apples and competitive in terms of our ability to, in terms of pricing, the types of vendors that might be interested in participating. I'll talk a little bit more about that process. And so basically the idea is that we'll use these projects to develop the projects as well as a process. And then as we build future DER programs, they can make use of this evaluation process that we want to develop through these projects. Next slide, please. This project aligns very strongly with the strategic plan. We have a 20 megawatt goal for DERs in new power resources in San Mateo County. We want to increase resilience. And so again, we're going to be looking at using solar plus batteries that can also provide critical load backup. We want to support innovative solutions for clean energy. And if there's an opportunity to do so at a lot of different types of sites. And as far as fostering innovation through pilot programs, again, it's, if you move to the next slide, this initial process here, which is phase one. So from project concept to preliminary review, then there's a site visit. You have to size the system that has physical elements, it has financial elements, and you have to figure out the financing. Like this part of the project it's not like an absolutely clear way to do it. Some people will go through a very involved process and come up with a detailed feasibility assessment at the end. That may be the most detailed, but it's also the most expensive. What we want to do is create what we're calling a project package. And we're defining the project package as what's the minimum but sufficient level of detail that we can put together in a package that then goes out to bid, where vendors don't have to send their own engineers down to take a look at the site, where they can look at what we've developed and the preliminary drawings we've put in there, and they have the confidence to bid just on that package alone. And so that's really what we want to try and do, make this process more efficient, more cost efficient, and more time efficient. And so that's really the pilot aspect that we want to work on. If at that point, at the end of the 7 sites, we'll have DER projects that are sized for those sites, at that point, it will be the county's decision whether or not they want to move to an RFP. We'll have a sense of pricing, but we won't really know until we go out to that. If we were to move to RFP on these, then we would move into what we're calling phase 2 of the project, where we would seek help, some consulting support for like an engineering, independent owners engineer type of service to help us develop the RFP. And if it moves to deployment, be a partner to us in the county through that whole process. Next slide, please. So we ran a very thorough process in terms of the RFP itself. We had 2 steps. The first step was a qualifying step where we just wanted to screen for those we felt were the most qualified. It was a relatively simple response for firms, and we got 13 responses. And we selected 9 to move that was qualified. They were all qualified, but the 9 definitely stood out. Moved to step 2, where we asked for a much more detailed response. We received 8 responses and invited 4 to our shortlist. And then we did our shortlist interviews in early September, and we have selected McCalmont Engineering. They were unanimous choice of the evaluation team. We evaluated all the firms on subjective criteria as well as objective pricing and location were the 2 objectives. Our observations were that we were really impressed by the thoughtfulness and thoroughness of all the responses. The experience of all the firms was fantastic, exceptional, and the interest in this project was also was exceptional, as well as the interest in working with Peninsula Clean Energy. So it was actually a hard decision on our part. We're fortunate that we had a lot of qualified firms to choose from, but we feel very confident that McCalmont Engineering is the right choice for these projects. If you move to the next slide, please. Just a little bit about McCalmont. They're local in Campbell. They've designed, provide guidance for over 750 solar and storage projects across the US, delivered over 2 gigawatts of capacity. Within California, they've designed hundreds of large commercial industrial projects, including over 50 solar plus storage. We talked to their references, exceptionally strong references, what we heard from the references. They have 4 licensed engineers, professional engineers on staff. They're adding 2 more. And what we really like about that is, we don't know exactly where we're going to, what the DER future is, but we like the idea of having a local partner that can grow with us as we expand. And so, they'll be using a structural engineering partner, which is People's Associate Structural Engineers. They will just be used if if there's a need to do a detailed structural analysis of of a building on site, for instance, to make sure that the roof can support the solar. So if we go to the next slide. So as far as budget goes, so McCalmont was also the lowest price of all the bidders, and they were also the most modular in what they provided to us. So this 137,500. So that is a not to exceed value. That assumes that at all sites we'll do a site evaluation. We will need to use the external structural engineers, and that we will do a critical load assessment for critical load backup. And that will likely not, all those conditions will not apply at all sites. We will certainly do the site evaluation at all sites, but critical load and needing an external structural engineer at all sites won't. And so if we don't have to do that at a site, then the cost is reduced by that portion of the budget. So that's for the 7 county sites. And then we're asking for this additional allocation to do additional, this is an estimate for 7 sites. The reason why it's a lower cost is that we already have in mind several sites that we've been tracking over the last few months, and several of them are in the design phase at this point. So there isn't necessarily needs to be a site walk down. So we're expecting the cost to be a little lower, but we would, each of these would have to be priced on an individual basis. And then the consulting support is for, as I mentioned, independent engineering oversight, as well as for the pilot elements I've mentioned. We're looking at how we can simplify the overall process for site evaluation. Next slide. So again, our recommendation is to authorize the Chief Executive Officer to execute this contract with McCalmont for $137,500. And then approve the additional budget of $129,500 to be used on an as-needed basis to support additional DER site evaluations and procurement activities for a total authorization of $267,000. And I think that's all I had prepared to say.
Great. Thanks, Dave. All right, I see Pradeep's hand up. Pradeep, go ahead.
Yeah, Dave, help me define the DER site. Is it your plan to look at the sites as a microgrid site or as a backup supplementary renewable energy resilience site, or combination of the two?
I mean, we will look at every site as an individual site to see what is capable to deploy. I think that our first goal will be what type of generation can we put on it, and can we pair it with storage? Now, there's 2 reasons we want to pair solar with storage. From a Peninsula Clean Energy perspective, we want to move towards shifting energy that's produced by the sun into the non-solar hours. So to support our 24/7 time coincident renewable goals, we want to get solar paired with storage whenever possible. For the site, we expect that if we do put in a system that has solar plus storage, that we would segment a certain loads that the facility owners believe are critical or identify as critical, and then those would be tied into the battery system to back up those loads. It's unlikely we'd be putting in big enough systems to power an airport or power the entire facility. I mean, we're just going to be space constrained in a lot of these. I actually should take that back. The San Carlos Airport may not actually use that much power. It's possible. I don't know the actual details of what their load is at this point. But the general idea is that we will back up what we can back up, and we would identify what are critical loads, and we would use the facility owners, managers would be the ones to help us figure that out.
Thank you, Dave. And I think that one of the byproduct of the best practices of how to create that package would be really useful and really beneficial for the future development of this sort. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Just to follow up on Pradeep's question, are we thinking that we would own the equipment and lease the space from these sites, or would a developer come in and offer a PPA to the site owners, or have we even gotten there yet?
No, it's a great question, and this is something that the Power Resources team, we've been focusing on this in depth, this question of ownership and financial models, et cetera, and we're in the process of developing a detailed strategy document to kind of focus our thinking, as well as make the case for how we eventually believe is the best way to go. Short answer is we're not sure yet. Ultimately it will be up to the site owner to decide what ownership structure they want. What I've been told is that generally, especially for any type of critical facility functions, there's a strong interest in there not being a third-party owner, third-party owner just from a security of the resource perspective, having the output all for themselves. But I think this is something that we will have to explore. And I think one thing we've been doing a lot of modeling, financial modeling around the expected costs of these types of systems. And I think what we're seeing is that a system that can provide meaningful resiliency also comes at a higher cost. And part of this project, I think, will help us flesh out exactly what that premium is and the willingness and ability of parties to pay for that. And as far as PCE itself owning, that is something that we're looking at, how that would be structured if it was to be done. But we're still, that will be something we're gonna figure out through these projects.
Okay, no, fair enough. Any other board questions on this item? Seeing none, I've got two public comments, Mark Roost and then Tom Cabot. Mark, go ahead.
Thank you. There's a piece of news came out today. The Department of Energy has a consortium group of universities that are now saying they think they can get to 63% efficiency with perovskites. And that basically nearly triples the amount of electricity you can get off a given amount of surface area. And in a place like San Carlos Airport, the relevance is that the Air Force put in $1 billion last year in 2019, and they're aiming to do the same to expedite basically crowdsourcing electric aircraft from from all over the world, from small and medium companies all over the world, because they figure it's better than trying to go to Lockheed. And that means that within 4 or 5 years, we're going to see huge demand. We're going to basically see aircraft changing. So there's going to be demand. And the other concept is that you can put up solar canopies over places like even over parking, aircraft parking and stuff. So you can actually get far more area than you might think out of a solar installation. And I'd be happy to talk to you about costs of solar and batteries offline.
Interesting points. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say, yeah, absolutely. My email is dfreibush@peninsulacleanenergy.com. Feel free to reach out. I would say we're going to be limited to the ground elements, and we're obviously not going to get into the actual aircraft related solar. But yeah, we're certainly going to look at at how we can maximize the solar capacity at every site that we evaluate.
Yep. Thanks, Mark. Tom Cabot, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. Dave, as a resident of Menlo Park, I know my city is interested right now and is in the design phase of a new community center and is looking at having a significant solar array on the roof and battery backup, trying to avoid having a diesel generator and maybe making the whole facility an emergency emergency shelter facility as well. Would it be, how would one go about getting added to the list of projects being evaluated?
Well, first of all, this is exactly the type of project that we want to be able to support with the with the additional as needed budget. I can get your name, and I will either I will find out how to contact you, or again, my email is dfreibush@peninsulacleanenergy.com. Feel free to reach out, but I'd certainly be very interested to talk with you more about the project.
Thank you.
I can make sure you guys get connected too if you have any trouble.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Kat's got her hand up. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to let you know, with regard to the project that Tom's talking about, I'm on the subcommittee that's working on those details. And so if you contact me, I'm happy to send over anything that you might need on that.
Awesome. Thanks, Kat. Okay. I don't see any other hands up. I could entertain a motion on this recommendation.
I'll make a motion, Swain.
I'll second. This is Daniel in favor of the staff recommendation.
Okay, moved by Lee, seconded by Yost. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing no hands up, roll call vote, please.
All right, if you would please announce your approval or disapproval of the motion when I announce your jurisdiction. County of San Mateo.
Yes.
County of San Mateo.
Yes.
Town of Atherton.
Yes.
City of Belmont.
Yes.
City of Brisbane.
Yes.
City of Burlingame.
Yes.
Town of Colma.
Yes.
City of Daly City.
Yes.
City of East Palo Alto.
Yes.
City of Foster City.
Yes.
City of Half Moon Bay.
Yes.
Town of Hillsborough.
Yes.
City of Menlo Park.
Yes.
City of Millbrae.
Yes.
City of Pacifica.
Yes.
Town of Portola Valley.
Yes.
City of Redwood City. City of San Bruno.
Yes.
City of San Carlos.
Yes.
City of San Mateo.
Yes.
City of South San Francisco.
Yes.
Town of Woodside.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, great, thank you. Brings us to item 10, which is approval of the updated electric vehicle incentive budget. Jan or Raphael?
Raphael, will you present this?
Thank you, Jan, and thank you, directors. I'm pleased to be here to speak to this item, which is a request for an update in both the design and time for the electric vehicle incentive programs. As directors may recall, we've had ongoing electric vehicle incentive programs since programs started at PCE in 2018. This is the first major revision being brought to the board. Next slide. I'll be covering here, first of all, where this sits in terms of the overall programs portfolio, provide some context, details on the request, and then walk you through the specifics and close with the budget request. Next slide. First of all, we of course now have in the field, as it were, programs covering the three major sectors: buildings, transportation, and resiliency. Next. And this update relates specifically to private vehicles, which is our largest area of work in advancing both electric vehicle adoption and associated infrastructure. Next slide. We, of course, are operating now in a new context. Governor Newsom just last month put in place a new executive order directing state agencies to put in place regulations to ensure that all sales of all new vehicles in 2035 be electric or non-gas vehicles. So we're very excited for that direction of the state, but we also see the local programs, frankly, as instrumental in making the execution of this directive possible. And I'll speak more to that here in a moment. Next. So forgive me, there's a little bit of complexity here, both in terms of the context and in terms of the programs themselves, so please bear with me. What I'm going to speak to here is what is our context in terms of the number of vehicles in San Mateo County, and how do we get to comprehensive decarbonization by 2045, which is our target. We have approximately 660,000 vehicles in San Mateo County. That includes both private vehicles and fleets. Of these, approximately 8% were of sales, were electric in 2019. If we just look at private vehicles, it was approximately 17%. And what we want to do naturally is take it from nearly 100% gas vehicles, as shown on the orange line, down to 0 in 2045. Next. So we're now looking at the rate of new vehicle sales in the county and what will need to happen for us to reach 0 gas vehicles by 2045. The bars show the number of vehicles sold in the county every year with a certain growth rate for increase in population. The blue shows gas vehicles and the green shows electric. So to meet our target, which would include naturally the governor's target of 100% gas-free vehicles by 2035, we see the slope of the sales going down for the blue bars, which are the gas vehicles. Next. And to meet this, we will need a very aggressive growth curve in the sales of electric vehicles. So starting, we would hope to see a target of upwards of 20% of sales electric in 2020, growing to 33% by 2025, and nearly 60% by 2030. This is an extremely aggressive transition process. Which is why we are coming to recommend continuing the incentive program. But the incentive program, if we look farther out, probably will not be enough in and of itself. And one of the things that we will need to attend to in future strategy development is how we accelerate the rate of sales and turnover of vehicles so that we're on this target. Next. So our proposed 3-year program, it would provide incentives sufficient for 2,100 new electric vehicles and an additional 2,100 used electric vehicles, and I'll speak to the detail here in a moment. One thing to call out is it's not our expectation that every electric vehicle sold would have to have a PCE incentive. Part of our strategy is to create market momentum by using the incentives judiciously and broad-based marketing, which increases motivation and interest in electric vehicles. So the bulk of the process is market-driven, but again, the incentives are a key part of accelerating those sales and creating that interest and motivation on the part of buyers. Next slide. So here we see the charts together. Again, the bars show new vehicle sales and the orange line shows percentage of gas vehicles in the county. So the request here, the summary of the request is to approve a revised electric vehicle incentive program for both new and used vehicles, and also extending that for an additional 3 years. This is a budget of $4.7 million proposed. Of this, some of this is reallocated from existing programs where we have underutilized funds. And the underutilized funds have resulted from lower uptake than anticipated in the old program models for the new and used vehicles, as well as the pandemic-related downturn and lack of being able to do in-person events, which has opened up budget from the Ride and Drive program. So the net new funds is just over $3.8 million proposed here. Next slide. So going through these in detail, first at the top level on the new vehicle incentive, we're proposing a program design that has improved access, so more residents can access these incentives. Also a price cutoff, so we're not incentivizing luxury vehicles, and an emphasis on first-time electric vehicle buyers. In fact, these modifications were put in place for the current cycle here in 2020, with approval by the executive committee. And I'll explain the details here in a moment. Used vehicles, we're looking to, we have proposed here continuation of the low income program, but also are proposing adding general access to incentives as well. And this is in reflection of the downturn in the economy and the increased interest in used vehicles. And as noted earlier, this is a proposed three-year budget starting fiscal year 2022. Next slide. Next. So a little more detail here. First, on the new vehicles, our overall strategic goals here are to foster scale in vehicle sales, in part by lowering vehicle costs. Of course, growing the electric vehicle count to reduce greenhouse gases. Next, also to respond to the fact that other incentives are in decline. But we are seeing some pickup in vehicle sales following the shutdown. So there is, we're seeing a good opportunity to bring this into play at this time. Next. To date, we have had 2 years of the program. So far, we're in the 3rd year this year of the new vehicle program. The program in prior years were aimed at partnering with dealerships within San Mateo County. This seemed like a good approach. We followed the model that Sonoma Clean Power took, but there's been a lot of learning. One of the things that has happened in the market is there has been a substantial shift to online sales driven heavily by Tesla. And also we learned that many purchases are happening outside of the county. So where county residents are buying their vehicles outside of San Mateo County. So the new design is meant to address the weaknesses in prior years. We'll note here also, though, that those that did receive the incentives reported that the incentives were very important or crucial to the purchase, and they also accelerated the timing of purchases by, in most cases, by 6 months or more, which is part of the objective of the overall program. Next. So our objectives here, draw more likely adopters to choose EVs late in the sales cycles, accelerate the purchase decision, but also increase overall awareness of electric vehicles through countywide marketing, and then modifications to ensure additionality in the program, meaning that we're actually incentivizing net new purchases, not just purchases that would have already taken place. Next. So the proposal here is similar incentive levels, $1,000 for full EV, $700 for plug-in hybrids, a 4th quarter only promotion. Again, as we've had before, the intention here is to have a limited time window to create that motivation to take action. San Mateo County residents only, but the residents may purchase from any dealership or any source. Vehicle cost cap at $45,000 before taxes and fees, and targeting, again, as noted earlier, first-time EV owners or buyers only. And this year also, this change would be to purchased vehicles only, not to leases. There is a shift going on in the market now on electric vehicles to favor purchases, and also leases are less durable, if you will, way of getting a vehicle into the market. Next. Shifting now to used electric vehicles. Next. A couple notes for context. The used vehicle market is far larger than the new vehicle market, from 1.5 to 3 times the size. Demand, as you might expect, has increased substantially. There are no incentives available for used EVs aside for our low-income program. And currently we are partnered with Peninsula Family Service for administrative support on the low-income program, and that contract is expiring in February. Next. To date, this program has been operating year-round. We've had 68 vehicles in 18 months. It's been, I would describe as modestly successful. We have gotten fewer vehicles, but learned a great deal and started to stimulate interest in vehicles, electric vehicles, in a community that has not had a lot of exposure, frankly. So a big piece of the work has been education. The program is offered up to $4,000 or $2,000 of stacking with other programs. Next. So our proposal here is to expand access to EVs across the income spectrum. So not only low income, but median income or others who are looking to buy used vehicles, who may not be able to afford or have an interest in new vehicles. And this program is intended to be responsive to the current economic conditions. Next. The proposal here is very similar to the new electric vehicle incentives in that it's the same incentive levels, $1,000 for full battery electric, $700 for plug-in hybrid. We would have a low income adder, so it would be up to $4,000 if not stacking, just as with the prior or current program. Again, year-round availability, San Mateo County residents only, but with the option to purchase at any dealership. And we would have an administrator for outreach to the low-income community, again, providing that key education component, and that would be through a competitive selection process. Next. A couple final details with regards to Peninsula Family Service. It's been a valuable partnership, and our intention is to continue that relationship. Adjusted slightly to take best advantage of where Peninsula Family Services strong suits. So they would continue to offer referrals of their clients to receive these incentives. We would continue to offer point of sale option for participants who are going through their Drive Forward program. But we would be moving to another administrator those areas where Peninsula Family Service was more challenged to execute on, and that was manage the administrative process, the transaction management, and the education, the broader based education that will still be needed for the program. Next. So here's a look at the proposed budget for the proposed EV incentive programs and the approximate distribution of vehicles. So approximately 2,100 vehicles in the new electric vehicle track. Also approximately 2,100 vehicles in the used vehicle track, but with an estimated 300 for low income. And that would be consistent with our target of 20% investment in the low income community when we factor in particular the additional administrative and educational components, and for a total of $4.7 million overall and approximately 4,200 vehicles. The exact vehicle count will depend on the ratio of battery to plug-in hybrids. Next slide. So to close here, here's the proposal for consideration to the board. Again, approval of the updated program design and extending the budget and term of the program. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Raphael. Okay, board questions. Laura's got her hand up. Go ahead, Laura.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Chair Alps. Raphael, thank you for the update and thank you for taking into consideration learnings from the existing program and making modifications. I appreciate that. One thing I noted is that it looks like from your bar graph that you have conversion to all new cars being electric cars well in advance of the deadline from the Gavin Newsom played out. Am I reading that correctly?
I apologize if I wasn't clear, and maybe Shana, if you would cycle back to the graph. Actually, our intention is to support the 2035 target. So you'll note 2035 has no blue bar at the bottom. So that's intended to show that the governor's order is in effect.
Okay.
Now, a part of our thinking is that, again, we're a leading edge county in terms of electric vehicle adoption. So we will need to make sure that the adoption curve can actually meet that target to demonstrate that it's possible and to create the market conditions for that to be possible. And that's one of the reasons why we feel that it's going to be important to aggressively support that target for that to be successful.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think what I would just suggest is, as you just recently demonstrated your ability to kind of react and respond to, reality today with your programming, I would encourage you, to continue to do that. I just have a feeling that it's not going to be like a light switch going on and off with respect to, because there'll continue to be a lot of inventory of cars out on the road, some of which will continue to be gasoline. So it looks like that curve is just very aggressive from my perspective, and knowing what I know about consumer behavior. So
yes.
If you could just kind of keep an eye on that, that would be great. And at some point, I think we would need to challenge ourselves whether or not, given the policies coming out of Sacramento, if continued investment in this type of a program will actually be necessary, and maybe we switch to other types of things, like I'm thinking installation of electric vehicle chargers at a more rapid rate to kind of curry along that that adoption. So thank you for sharing with us your perspective on this.
Absolutely. So this program is only intended really to support the first couple of years of this curve. It's an incredibly dynamic environment. This model does not presume what exactly are the mechanisms that are driving that curve. It could well be that vehicle purchases will start to hockey stick on their own because the vehicle's price drops are, the vehicles are more attractive than gas vehicles on a price basis up front, which is a definite possibility, more vehicle types and so forth. So the market momentum may carry a lot of this curve. We just don't know at this point exactly how that's going to come about.
Great. Well, it's reassuring to hear you say that it's dynamic and it could change. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Thanks, Laura. Kat's got her hand up. Go ahead, Kat.
I just had to laugh because a lot of what Laura said was on my mind as well. I come from a family of car aficionados, and I know my husband desperately wants his parents' 1966 Mustang.
I've seen some wonderful electric conversions of old Mustangs. Tell them to look into it. Yeah, absolutely. And I've said this before, but you're going to be rid of me after a month or two, so I'm going to put my last plug in. Consistently, I can't overemphasize this. I hear that people are not buying cars because they can't afford them as much as they're buying cars because they have no place to charge them. We have a lot of people in San Mateo County who rent their house and they can't just put it in, or they live in apartments or condos or places where it's really not an option. And what I would love to see us do is, as much effort as we put into reach codes, that's great, but this is a huge part of it as well. And we need to really push cities, as so much is being built right now, to say, no, you have to have a higher level of EV chargers, whether they're building apartments, whether they're redoing things, whether they're building office. And in a lot of places, you don't have a place at work or at home. And so it becomes a non-starter.
Yeah.
And we need to take away all the barriers we can. And a major barrier that I see is the charging situation. And so I would like to see us have a program that's just as aggressive and just as, we applaud each other and supportive on putting in better codes for really making people, even if they're not putting in the charges themselves, they're putting in the conduit so that they can put in the chargers. Because as the graph showed, give or take my husband's 66 Mustang, the most people in the next 20, 30 years are going to have electric cars, and we're not going to have enough EV chargers for them, because as we put in a building, it becomes much more expensive to start digging up and putting them in afterwards. So I just wanted to say my plug for, I think we're really remiss in this. I think we touched on it, but I don't think we did enough. I thought we were way too shy, too little. We need to revisit this and really push each other and support each other and putting forward better codes to support EV chargers.
Absolutely, Director Carlton, so I appreciate that. I am pleased to report that in the REACH Code program, which has gotten renewed and surprisingly strong momentum coming out of the shutdowns, cities are adopting the EV model code. So Burlingame, Redwood City, East Palo Alto, which all have adopted here in the last couple of months, all have adopted very aggressive REACH codes per our model, and that includes 100% access for multi-unit dwelling residents to have charging in their own residences. So we're starting to see some momentum there, but still a lot of work to do. And from a budget standpoint, we are strongly weighted towards EV infrastructure. So our EV infrastructure program, as you may recall, is $16 million over 4 years. And so we are favoring that, that part of the overall program.
And I don't mean to say anything bad about what you've presented. What you've presented is extremely thoughtful, and I support it. And I think it's wonderful that you brought this forward. And you know, it's true, we have to be flexible. That's fine. And you know, Menlo Park put forward an EV thing that everyone thought was very aggressive, and I don't think we did enough. So you have to you know, kudos to you for coming back and saying we need to push this forward, we need to tweak it. I think that's great, and I applaud that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kat. Okay, I see 2 hands from the public. Go ahead, Mark Roost.
Thank you. So on conversions, it was good that they came up. You don't have to replace the vehicle, just replace the engine. You don't even have to replace the transmission with Ed Monford's approach. It starts jobs that are attractive to youth into cars, and I'd like to see the possibility of helping startups bring new ideas that change the game to market. That would be really high leverage, because then you get this explosive growth out of the capitalist system.
Agreed. Thanks, Mark. Okay, Tom Cabot, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Raphael, thank you for sharing the presentation. I really like your proposals that essentially democratize the EV incentives and spread them out towards the lower cost vehicles and to new time or first time buyers. Great idea. And then harkening back to earlier in tonight's meeting, your portfolio manager was presenting some great graphs that show essentially the issue of the low cost, highly available daytime energy, and then more expensive nighttime energy in our future. And so looking for ways for how we can have the daytime energy go into these cars through kind of building on Director Carlton's suggestion that we look carefully at charging and maybe combine that with the efforts to get the 24/7 energy demand matched to our renewables by trying to do everything we can to support daytime charging as the first preference for folks. Yep. And then also on your slide 68, I just want to make sure everyone's noticing you're only discussing the new vehicles coming into the fleet. That's why the new sales blue lines drop to 0. That doesn't mean the gas fleet dropped to 0. The gas fleet exists above the graph you have. And so there still are gas stations and gas fleets operating there. But with the numbers you're showing, there is very significant electric revenue to PCE coming from all of those new cars that are going to be part of the fleet. The fleet will grow to all electric ultimately. And so we need to look at being able to catch up with this by having the board encourage the staff to pursue using that estimate of net revenue to explore what is the borrowable money available to get in front of this problem, as Director Carlton suggested.
Well taken, Tom. Thanks. Okay, if there are no other comments, I could entertain a motion on item 10.
I moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Carlton, seconded by Rarbach. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote then.
Okay, if you would announce your approval or disapproval when I announce your jurisdiction. County of San Mateo.
Yes.
County of San Mateo.
Yes.
Town of Atherton.
Yes.
City of Belmont.
Yes.
City of Brisbane.
Yes.
City of Burlingame.
Yes.
Town of Colma.
Yes.
City of Daly City.
Yes.
City of East Palo Alto.
Yes.
City of Foster City.
Yes.
City of Half Moon Bay.
Yes.
Town of Hillsborough.
Yes.
City of Menlo Park.
Yes.
City of Millbrae.
Yes.
City of Pacifica.
Yes.
Town of Portola Valley.
Yes.
City of Redwood City. City of San Bruno.
Yes.
City of San Carlos.
Yes.
City of San Mateo.
Yes.
City of South San Francisco.
Yes.
Town of Woodside.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thanks, Raphael.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, so one more item here, item 11, which is an update on our IRP targets. I believe this will be Siobhan.
Yep, this will be me.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. If we go to the next, go one more forward, please. So I'm going to give you an update on some of the targets that we set in our, what we're now calling our strategic integrated resource plan. This was initially passed by the board at the end of 2017. It was developed for internal strategic planning purposes and is unrelated to the CPUC IRP process, which is why we've referred to it as our strategic IRP. The original document had 4 primary purposes: to document our current procurement status, quantify our resource needs, articulate procurement policies, and then communicate those policies to our various stakeholder groups. Next, please. The main outcome of this was identifying these 6 different characteristics of a diverse portfolio. And then we set targets around each of these characteristics. So term length was one, additionality, ownership, project size, project location, and technology. Next, please. Another part of this was to identify how we wanted to close our open position. So our open position is how much have we not procured compared to what our goal is per particular time period. And we monitor this separately for different energy products, including our energy, our renewables, and our greenhouse gas free resources. And we set different targets for each year. So for the current year, we're setting a target of 90 to 100% procured. If we go out further, we want less and less to be procured, so that each year we're procuring a little bit to close that position. Next slide, please. And so this is showing us our status. So the top row in this table is what our target was. And then below that, we have our status for each of the next couple of years under our different procurement products. So for 2020, our goal was to be 90 to 100% procured. We are actually at 110% for our energy hedge. This is primarily because we procured most of this before the start of the year, and we've had lower load this year due to COVID and sheltering in place. Our renewables has also been higher than we needed, as 106%, again related to that load. But we can use some of this to offset the slightly open greenhouse gas free position. And then we look out the next years, we're a little bit over procured on our energy hedge for 2021, again, because we're predicting lower loads continuing into 2021. And then we're in our just below our right target for renewables, but we have a couple of contracts that are in negotiation that will bring these up. And then our greenhouse gas free target for next year is right in line. Next slide, please. So another target that we set was around additionality. So additionality means that a project would not have happened without Peninsula Clean Energy taking an action. Usually that means signing a power purchase agreement. So for example, our Wright project that's currently operating and our Mustang 2 project, which will be coming online next month, are both new projects and would contribute towards our additionality target. Repowered projects could also count if there's a significant investment in that repowering. So our goal was to target 50% of our portfolio from new projects by 2025. In 2020, we're getting about 15%. 2021, we expect that to be 24%. And as we add in more projects, that number will go up. Next slide, please. Oh, no. We also set targets around term length. So we wanted 50% of our portfolio to come from long-term contracts, and then fill the remainder of the portfolio with a diversity of contract lengths. So you can see here what targets we had set out for each of those different term length ranges. You go to the next slide, please. So this is showing us where we are currently. So the first column is our target, so 15% short-term, 17.5 medium, 17.5 intermediate, and then 50% long. And so for 2021, we're about 6% short, and then we have no short-term contracts out in 23 and 24, 25. We would expect to get those signed up in the outer years. And then our, you can see our medium and intermediate targets are just about in line. We'll increase those a little bit as we get closer to those dates. And then our long-term contract is about 27% for 2021, and then 25% for the outer years. And as we add in more contracts.
What are you looking for, Oliver?
Sorry?
Oh, no.
Oh,
Daniel, you're off mute.
Thank you, sorry.
Next slide, please.
Wait, Siobhan, before you leave,
Go ahead, Wayne.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Rick.
So just looking at the long term, obviously it takes time to get long term online. And how are we going to meet the target for 2021 and 2022 on long term in particular? Looks like we're really far away.
We are, and I think when we set this, we probably should have set our long-term target to coincide with our new target for 2025. We set them both at 50% because we expected that we'd want the long-term contracts would have to come from new projects, but we didn't set different target years than we probably should have, because to your point, it takes a little while to get them built.
And so what will, I know that Mustang is going to come online, and that is that included in the 27% for 2021?
Yep, so I included the projects that are already under contract with our forecasted generation from those projects. And then we have a couple of projects that are in negotiation right now. One will contribute to the long term and one to the intermediate term.
Okay.
And then we just concluded an RFO, and we're looking at, we're evaluating those projects right now. Those won't help us in 2021, but they could contribute to our other years.
Okay.
Why don't we, Wayne, go ahead and ask your question now if you want to.
Oh yeah, thanks. Given the, if Biden's plan to create more green jobs, what we, how much more do we need to?
You're great.
How much more does the industry have to build so that we can have availability of some of these contracts? Because it looks to me like it's becoming harder and harder to get a lot of these contracts.
It's harder to find the wind contracts in California, particularly. There's a lot being built around California, but in California, a lot of the wind resources are already overdeveloped. And those contracts those projects are under contract with the investor-owned utilities. There are a lot of solar projects that are in development. So in our recent RFO, we received 30, I think, solar projects or solar plus storage projects. So there are still a number of those. We also received a couple of geothermal offers. So there are offers out there for procure from. Wind has been the most competitive, which is why we've tried to get those projects under contract so that they could serve our needs.
John Keener, go ahead.
Yeah. How realistic is it to expect that we will be able to meet our targets, say, in the mid-20s for short and medium term contracts?
Yeah, those are a little bit harder to find. I think the long-term contracts take longer to get built, but there's a lot of them out there. The medium-term contracts, everyone wants to have their project under a long-term contract, so they've been a little bit harder to find. We did an RFO specifically for this term length and received a limited number of bids, but we're continue to be out there talking to developers and project owners to look to fill these different term lengths. And the reason that we set these different term lengths was in case we did have a decrease in our load, we wouldn't be
right
under contract for more than we need.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Siobhan.
All right, next slide, please. One of the other diversity targets we looked at was project size, and we set a target that no one project would be greater than 15% of our load. So here we have a pie chart showing our projects and what percent of our load they're making up. Right is looking like 16% right now. This is partially because COVID has decreased our load forecast. It was 14% of our pre-COVID load, and now it's about 16% of our post-COVID load forecast. But the project itself is the same size. Just wanted to point that out. And then we have Mustang. This is assuming Shiloh at its full capacity is about 12%. The small hydros is a series of 4 different projects that total 12.5 megawatts. And then we have a small wind project from Buena Vista. It's about 3% of our load. And then the other portion is made up right now of greenhouse gas free, which we don't generally contract with by project, or we have some portfolio renewable contracts that are not project specific. Next slide, please. Okay, another target was related to ownership, and we set some guidelines that we limit our exposure to any one developer or owner to 15%. We also wanted to make sure that whoever the developer or owner is has the correct experience to develop and operate the project. They have a financing plan in place and successful track record. We don't want to work with owners that oppose CCAs, and we want financially stable organizations. So when we put out requests for proposals and we're looking at signing contracts with projects, we look at all of these different factors. And I've included below some of the owners of our different projects. Aside from the Wright project, which is at 16% of our load, there's no one company that owns more than 15% of our load. Next slide, please. Another item that we look at is location. Part of this is due to evaluation and limiting the difference between market prices between San Mateo County and the project location. We also want to make sure that we're not building multiple projects that are at the same pricing node, because that would increase our exposure. And then we're also looking at diversifying the generation profiles to aggregate our portfolio to match our load. Next slide, please. So this is showing us where our current projects are located. So our 4 small projects are up in Redding. We've got 2 wind projects, the Buena Vista and Shiloh projects in the Bay Area, 2 solar projects in the Central Valley. And then the Palm Springs project actually just stopped, their contract just ended this summer, so they're no longer delivering to us. But a pretty good diversity throughout California. Next slide, thank you. Another One was that looking at diversity around technology. So we don't prefer specific renewable technologies. We want to procure from a diverse set of technologies, but we did want to make sure we didn't have more than 25% from any one manufacturer. And again, this is a way to limit our exposure in case there was some sort of fatal flaw with a particular manufacturer. So when we do RFOs, we collect information on planned technologies for projects. This can often, because we're looking at projects in the development stage, this can change during the design process, but we continue to monitor that for any projects that we contract with. And so I included here some of the technology manufacturers for the primary equipment on some of our projects. And none of our projects do we have technology owners that exceed that 25% target. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, that was the last one. Any other questions?
Questions for Siobhan on this one? Okay. There's no action on this, so if there are
Just
no...
discussion,
Oh,
yeah.
John's got his hand up. Go ahead, John.
I think that that maybe we should show some flexibility in the future, and I see it right now in terms of the contract length, but maybe in terms of the other parameters also. And I wonder how much flexibility we have right now in all of these parameters, and how difficult it would be to expand that flexibility.
Yeah, I think when we wrote the IRP, we intentionally set these as targets as opposed to, so that we could have that flexibility with the idea that the targets would be flexible to market conditions. But certainly open to feedback for other ways to think about it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I also think that, looking at what's out there now, the reality is we're going to be much more dependent on solar plus storage going forward.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see any other alternative that's meaningful and greenhouse gas free that we could actually get in the next 5 years. But I assume that we're just going to go on kind of a case-by-case basis and look at these things as staff brings them back to us and just make sure that we're not sort of piling in anything too much or more than we're comfortable with. So
good.
Other questions or comments on Siobhan's report? Okay. Thank you, Siobhan. Seeing none, we'll move on to board reports. Does anybody have anything they wanted to share with us before we adjourn?
Happy Halloween.
Yes, thank you all, and be safe. And
Millbrae's giving out, the Lions Club is giving away candy, social distancing at the library. So if anybody's around with their kids, bring them along.
Cool.
At 3 to 5 on Saturday.
Okay.
I have to bring my kids? What?
I don't let my kids eat that crap.
I'm in my costume already.
I just leave them outside.
Yeah, oh yeah. We had this stuff from the kids all the time. All right. Anything else? Okay. Council has made his appearance one more time. Is that just to be available, or did you have tidings of joy?
Just to everybody know that I'm still here. That's all. I don't want to be forgotten.
And you're still
As long as you're smiling, we're happy.
Yeah. All right. Okay. If we are no other comments, then I believe we are all done. Thank you all, and I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Happy Halloween.